Well, in San Diego, you had said that if somebody spends 10% of the time in the vortex, then their life is magically unfolding.
In comparison with what most others are living.
I see. Oh, okay. That was in comparison to others. Okay.
We would like you to be in 90 and out 10. That's the perfect balance.
Okay, very
because
good.
10% of contrast is enough to keep things moving forward, and 90% in the vortex is really what you planned on when you came. Not one of you said, I'll come forth and suffer myself into expansion. Not one of you said that.
Okay. I just have a quick question about focus wheels. I know you had said to do focus wheels every morning, and I do focus wheels sometimes, but in general, I find that they take me a lot in the other direction, so then I'll meditate before I do the focus wheel, but then by the time I've meditated, I feel really good, and I don't feel like doing the focus wheel. But that kind of goes back to what you were saying before, just to look at it.
See what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Those were perfect words, because the meditation takes you into the vortex, and from inside the vortex, there's nothing to clean up.
Right.
But this goes back to the earlier question that you were talking about. Do I focus or do I let it go?
Right.
And the meditation causes you to let it go. So the reason that we teach focus wheels at all is because we think that it is so fun to be physically focused and have your hands in the clay in such a deliberate way.
Yeah.
In other words, it is really fun to take and purposeful and valuable to take an issue and move it to a better place, and then take that issue and move it to a better place. Because if you take here's the distinction. If you have an issue and you meditate, so you've distracted yourself from it and you've tuned yourself to a higher vibration, but you are in that 10% of the time that you're out of the vortex, out there in the world observing, there's a high probability that in that short time you're out there, that issue is going to rear its head again, and you're going to then go rushing off to meditate in order to free yourself from it.
Sure.
Where if you take the time with a focus wheel to leave it in a better place and then leave it in a better place, then what you've done, you've meditated and left things alone, but you've focus wheeled and really cleaned them up. So now, in that 10% of the time that you're outside the vortex, there's none of that's active in your vibration anymore because you cleaned it up. So now it's not going to rear its head again, which means in time you really make headway. Do you see what we're getting at?
I love that.
When you think about it, if you never do anything about deliberately taking a thought, you see what happens as you are socialized in your world, you're actually trained into perspectives that your inner being does not agree with. And when life causes it to be activated, then you've got that negative emotion, which is your indicator that you've got an active vibration that your source does not agree with. So if you take the time to retrain that active mind so that you come into alignment with source on that subject, now you do it once, and it might take you a month of focus wheels, but you've done it. And think how much leverage you're going to have, because then that's all that time that you don't have to meditate in order to release something. You see what we're getting at?
I do.
We want you to be fully focused in this physical life. In other words, we teach meditation because it's far better for you to be in a state of no thought than in a state of resistant thought. But it's not natural for you to be physically focused and be in a state of no thought.
Right.
You didn't come forth to not think. You came forth to think. So we're only teaching the non-thought as a sort of last-ditch effort.
Gotcha.
We want you to focus. And so now what are we saying? It may be coming across a little confusing here today, because we're saying focus feelings, we're saying get into the vortex, we're saying let it go. And you have pinpointed all of that and brought it to a very acute conversation. And what we really want you to hear is focusing is where the joy of life is. Creators, focus. Creators, focus.
Yeah.
Creators, focus. We're just saying if you'll focus your feeling first, you'll get in the vortex. And then from inside the vortex, as you focus your thoughts, now you're really cooking.
I like it. I just have one more. Go ahead.
For example, don't you love having a conversation with someone who's really thought a lot about life? Isn't it fun?
It is.
To talk to them about what they know and hear what they know and hear what their plans are. And don't you just love the people who have more definition in their conversation as compared to those who are vaguer? Isn't it more satisfying to be specific than vague? And isn't it more fun to have specific conversations than vague ones?
Yeah.
But what if a person is having a very specific negative conversation? You'd want them to be vague, wouldn't you? Yeah. Or you might get vague. In other words, but if they're tuned in, now you want them to be specific. So that sort of says it in another way, doesn't it?
It does.
We've noticed as we interact with our physical friends that as a general rule, now this is the population at large in general, which is never fair to individuals, but it's the population at large in general. Almost always negative when they are specific. The more specific they are, the more negative they become. The more general they are, the more positive they become. But we're talking about outside the vortex group. Inside the vortex, where it's all positive, the more specific you are, the better it is. The more exhilarating it is. That's why we thought you might enjoy writing your own book.
Yes.
Because you get to form the thoughts. You see what we're getting at? That's all. We're not saying that what you have cooked up is not a good idea.
Yeah.
We just know specific feels better. So now that brings us to another conversation. Which is better? Me specifically involving myself or me delegating? When do I delegate and when do I do? When do I focus? And when do I release it to someone else? And we say, and this would be the answer that we were feeling from you when we were pinpointing you on the question. You just do the stuff you really like the most. And leave everything else to someone else. And that is the reason that you've come to the conclusion that you have relative to the partnership. You just do the part you like the most. And leave the other to someone else who is finding that to be their best effort at the time.
That's awesome. I'm taking him to some of my public speaking events because it is magical when I speak to an audience that's asking me business questions, and he's really good at capturing the magical parts, and I honestly forget them later.
Good.
Yeah. So you know me quite well, and I'm just wondering, anything else? Like, what's next for me? If you were in my shoes, specifically me, what would you do next? I'm curious.
Say yes.
Okay.
Say yes to the stream of things that are flowing your way. Say yes.
Thank you. I love you so much. Thank you.